Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. It's good to be with you again. This is Tim Andersen, the appraiser's advocate. We've got another mover and shaker with us today. We're with Jarrett Hardesty. Now, Jarrett is out of the Kentucky area. He's been in this business a long time. He's in various aspects of this business. And in fact, Jared, that's what we want to talk to you about today. Now, you and I have mentioned offline or off air that appraisers are slowing down. There isn't as much work as there was before. And you notice this happening. And as the leader of your company, you had to do something about it other than to say, probably what I'd say, well, okay, I'll go fishing. But you had to jump in there and those who know me realize how ironic that is because I don't think I've been fishing in my life. But
Well, I
you
like to
had to
fish.
jump in there and good. I like to eat. Um, you had to jump in there and make some decisions about where you were going to go, where your company was going to go, where your associates were going to go, et cetera. So, and again, we've spoken about this off the air, but okay, primarily you do residential work, but yet you have transitioned into commercial work, let's say non-GSE work. I don't want to confuse that with commercial real estate appraisal, but you've transitioned into non-GSE work. Okay, so the first question is why?
Well, I guess the biggest thing is, and I've been, like I said, I've been at this for a while, and when I saw interest rates go to 2%, 3%, whatever they were, wherever you got in at, I kind of thought, and I was along that lines of thought is like when interest rates first went to sixes and fives and sixes, how you want to say it, like, well, what happens when um they go up? Because it's going to go up. And so, at what point do you start looking down the road and saying, all right, if we don't diversify what we're doing, how are we going to be relevant and be able to make a livelihood? And I think, it's easy to be busy with the work, if that makes sense, and not pay attention to what's going on. And so that's one of the things that I don't know, maybe I've been blessed with or cursed with, or however you look at it, is I've always had a pretty good eye of like trying to see the storm on the horizon and not look at the current weather that we're in. And so I think I don't want to say this. I think like moving into some of the non-GSE work, we do a lot of stuff for realtors and attorneys and things of that nature, and is really like it's necessary to stay relevant right now. I mean, as we all know, mortgage work is down. I mean, I saw this is the other day, we're in January. I saw the other day that mortgage applications were up 10%. But if you talk to the loan officers, and which you should be doing, that sends you appraisals, you should have the conversation with them, let them know you're still alive. You know what they're seeing on applications is like not good credit people. So as applications may be up, that may not still turn to work, but you still need to know what your market is doing locally on top of that. And so I think the transition is necessary to the non-lender work, but it's also you can't give up on a non-lender work either.
So you're talking about some type of mixture of the two. Let's talk about I like your analogy of the storm on the horizon. Okay, so the sun's shining right now, but you're seeing some type of tempest off in the distance. Okay, so you decided, all right, we're gonna start working with realtors, attorneys, blah blah blah, even private mortgage work rather than
Mhm,
GSE.
mhm.
Okay, so let's talk about the mechanics of that. Now, you've got a small organization. Your organization is bigger than the typical real estate appraisal office. So you've got a small organization. So you, was the leader, had to sit down and make a decision. And that was, okay, you, person A, are going to do this, and you, person B, are going to do this, and I'm going to do 18 other things myself. And we're going to get through this. Okay. Walk us through the scenario of what you had to do to say, okay, guys, we're moving from pure GSE mortgage work into unpure GSE mortgage work. And we're going to work with attorneys, and we're going to work with the CPAs. We're going to do yellow book work and blah blah blah. Whatever it is you're doing. So walk us through the scenario of the change itself, how long the change took, the changes you had to make in your office. Was there any education involved? Was there further CE involved? Because this is probably what's slowing a lot of appraisers down from making this transition. They just don't know what to do. But because you've done it, you've made the transition, you've made those decisions, you've been faced with those dilemmas, and you had to solve those problems, albeit it was, that doesn't mean your solution would work for anybody else, but at least it was a solution that worked for you. So explain to us what's going on there, and then I'm going to follow up with another related question.
Well, I think like like I guess I should say this. Let's preface this first is like we are transitioning into commercial work. Now, what I have done to do that is I've got a couple of guys that are going through the commercial classes to get their generals. But I have partnered with a commercial appraiser to help kind of like contract work with them so that we can gain that necessary credit experience to take on the commercial stuff. So now instead of saying I'm a residential guy, I've got, a couple of guys and I'm going to go down that road at some point. I just don't have time right now. I stay pretty busy with everything else I got going on, but I have got with a guy that, and they don't have to be in your state. They don't have to be in your town. They can be wherever, because reciprocity is such a wonderful thing if you use it correctly. I've got a guy that's, lives in Florida, has a commercial license, that's willing to like partner with us on our commercial work to get it done. So that accomplishes a couple of extra things for us. It brings the company a little extra money. It helps the guy in Florida make some money. And I'm getting experience for the guys in my office that want to do the commercial work. So now it's not that eating an elephant thing that, we always kind of, it's not that big of a deal because, I've got someone that's got, the experience and the geographical competence that's willing to help on. We're all making money. And I'm treating it as I'm treating it as a deal of like, even when we get commercial, it's not that relationship's over. It's a partnership. And I think that's kind of like where appraisers get tore up on stuff. It's like, man, if we would just talk to each other, we would make so much more money. But going back to that transition is one thing that I've done is I've always been I'm very approachable. And Tim, you've known me for a long time. I'll talk your ear off if you call me. I tend not to shut up. And it's and I'm that way with everybody. I like people. I like getting to know people. I like to see what makes people tick. And with us being approachable, like if we've had appraisal issues or not, or issues with realtors, like I don't run away from it and hide behind I can't talk to you because you're not my client. You can have conversation with those realtors that, you can't discuss assignment specific results, but you can still talk to them and you can defuse a situation. And doing that has been the catalyst to our non-lender work. It's amazing if you have a conversation with a realtor about whatever, and if they're mad at you and you diffuse the situation, you know how many assignments, much work I've picked up from that situation, being willing to have a conversation. And I think appraisers hide from that for the most part, hide from conflict, if you will. And I think if we would address the conflict, that it speaks volumes about who you are. And because I've been willing to do that, that transition has really been, I talk to a lot of freaking real estate agents all the time. And because of that, and the way that, like where I'm at, we're getting a lot of cash buyers coming from other parts of the state because real estate or other parts of the country, because our real estate is cheaper than most places. Guess what? Those cash buyers like to know what they're buying. And who do they call? They call the appraisers they like. And who are the appraisers they like? The ones that talk to them. And I think if you're going to make that transition, and you've been gruff, if you will, over the years. You're going to have to do some relationship repair, if that makes sense.
Might have to have a big serving of humble pie, you're saying.
Oh, 100%, man. And none of us like to be wrong.
All right.
None of us like
Go
to be
ahead.
wrong, and we make mistakes. But what I find as an end user of appraisers, because as you know, me and my wife both sell real estate. As an end user of an appraiser of appraisals, if someone makes a mistake on appraisal, God, getting them to own up to it or fix it, good luck. And I don't understand it. I mean, if you screwed up, you screwed up. We've all made mistakes. I can't walk on water. You might be able to. I've tried a few times. I ultimately sink after about 18 inches. But after I step off the boat, I'm pretty much going to the bottom if I don't do something. So, but I mean, just own up to what you got going on, and don't be so unapproachable that you can't, that people don't want to deal with you. I mean, how many, and I'll ask this to you, Jim. I mean, how many complaints that appraisers get at the appraisal board could have been handled with good bedside manner and avoided?
A number, quite frankly. Yeah, some appraisers take a charge, or excuse me, some appraisers take a complaint coming in through the state as a personal attack.
Mhm.
And when it's a complaint, it's not an attack yet. It could be, but it isn't yet. And if appraisers were to calm down and try to diffuse the situation, in some cases, not at all, but in some cases, the issue could go away, although not all of them. But now let's go back to what you talked about, your commercial stuff. Okay, you have partnered with a state certified general real estate appraiser to help you out with those assignments. Now, we're not looking to see what your business relationship is. That's not the point. But excuse me, how did you first make that contact? And what did this particular appraiser require of you before he was willing to, in effect, take on your residential guys as what amounts to commercial trainees?
Um, well, used to belong to several mastermind groups and different groups with people in it. And then, you just get to meet people. And that's how I met him, is through a group. And again, I think with remote work, and this is just this is me to encourage you to get out if you're listening to this. Like with remote work and the way things are, like seriously, you really don't have to leave your house outside to do an inspection anymore. And I think that's been a big demise to the appraisal industry because we don't talk to anybody like we should. And so as you meet people, you can go to a trade show and you can meet people as far as like some of the, and you just make friends. And so with my guy, it was a deal like, it wasn't like, hey, Tim, I met you today. Would you be willing to take on a commercial trainee or two in Kentucky so that I can get some commercial generals in my office so we can further expand our business portfolio? It was a deal of like, hey, Tim, I've known you for 2 or 3 years. I've got a guy that, and a lot of it was like, I've got someone who needs a commercial appraisal done. Do you want it? We'll do the inspection for you. Just pay us for the inspection. And then, yeah, we're good. At least I have someone to field those commercial assignments for me. Because even as, they see the name of my business, and hey, I've got a sixplex over, across town. Can you do it? Well, for years, I mean, what do you say? Well, I can't do it. It's more than 4 units. And so I decided to find someone that could actually do those for us so that we're still, even though we're not really making any money on doing the assignment or making any money, to speak of, we're still solving that problem for that client. And if it's a good client that sends us a lot of residential work, why not figure out an avenue to get the commercial stuff done so they don't call Andersen appraisal and say, hey, can you do this commercial assignment for us? And say, yeah, I'm like, oh, by the way, we got these fourplexes. You want those at the same time? Sure. Then I've just lost all that. Does that make sense?
Very much so, yes.
And so that's kind of how
So
that relationship started. We just sending him work.
okay, you mentioned networking essentially. Okay. And part of your success in making this transition was therefore in the networking aspect of things. Now, let's talk about networking on three levels. Let's talk about networking locally, networking statewide or regionally, and then networking nationally. Uh, what do you do to network locally?
Um, like I get out and I talk to a lot of people. If I'm going um down the road and I see a um, small real estate office, big real estate office, bank, mortgage office, whatever, then I don't know them, and I've got 30 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes, I'll stop in and see them. And I don't ask them for work. I just introduce myself. Hey, local appraiser in town. Don't know you guys. Thought I'd say hello, introduce myself. Don't even leave them cards. Just how you doing? Shake the hands, do the pilot, kiss the babies, and move on. And don't make it a big deal.
At
It's
this
it's
point,
more out of it's more out of just getting them to know the name.
and at this point, you're just saying, "Hi, I'm here." And
Mhm.
when they say, "Great, why?" You go, "At this point, it's to shake your hand and get to know you."
Pretty much.
I'll ask you for it later, but I'm not going to do that right now because we're not that far along. Okay. All right. Now, from a standpoint of regional networking, now you're in Kentucky. We both know Brian Reynolds, fine gentleman, good appraiser, a heck of a nice guy.
Mhm.
And, Brian helps people all over the country. And Brian's got brokerage offices, Brian's got appraisal offices, he's a partner in appraiser learning. Obviously, he did not get to that point by staying in his appraisal office and appraising houses. So I bring Brian up because he lives in Kentucky, not very far from you,
All right.
and he he has he gets around and he's licensed in I think 3 states. So, and you met him personally. So obviously that type of regional contact cannot but help you. Well, how else do you make regional contacts? What do you do to get the attention of other appraisers in the region, other clients in the region? What do you get? What do you do to get other people in the region to call you?
Well, you're gonna laugh. You're gonna probably think I'm weird or dumb or stupid or brilliant or maybe all of the above. But
Let's go
I
brilliant.
brilliant is not a word that I get used with describe my description very often, but or ever for that matter. But no, I think one of the biggest things that we've done over the last few years is really getting involved in social media. Because honestly, what most people do when they're bored or have a few minutes or at work or not wanting to work or whatever, they scroll. And so I hired a social media manager to help me with that. And so, in which has gotten me, for the most part, to be pretty consistent on posting and putting stuff out. And some of it is actually really good stuff, and some of it is kind of goofy stuff, and some of it is just stuff so that you recognize the name. Um, and that has really gained us a bigger audience, um, if you will. And and then like this on the and look, like the 100% Facebook groups, the appraisal Facebook group, and I'm not picking on 100% because there's a lot of good stuff on there, but like that's where like you don't ask a question because you will get eaten alive. Because as you know, there's however many appraisers in this country, and that's how many opinions we have about whatever question you just asked. And some people are really cordial and good, and some people are like I'm going to take you to task and you're a moron, and I'm going to make sure that everybody knows about it. So a lot of that, like when I see those Facebook groups and stuff, and I'm not a big Facebook person, and that's why I have a social media manager, because I don't like to do that stuff. But I will send private messages and say, hey, maybe look at trying to do this, or maybe think about it this way. And doing that over a long period of time has introduced me to a lot of people. Just simply being willing to help and not want anything in return. Because honestly, like I work with a few appraisers now, and kind of just with the slowdown, trying to stay relevant and stay busy. I work with a few appraisers now in different parts of the country where we just bounce ideas off each other. Talk to them 2 or 3 times a week. Sometimes I talk to them 2 or 3 times a day. Like kind of like, hey, I'm running into this. What have you done here? And and so just having that conversation and building rapport with other appraisers in different parts of the country. I mean, shoot, if you're in town and you need help, I'll help you. I don't care. But being willing to do that's gained us a lot of networking ability, if you will. And you start to kind of become someone people will trust. And when you can kind of get to that point, it helps you grow your business, and it helps you help them grow their business, if that makes sense.
So from just a quick sub question, your social media manager, is that a contractor or is that somebody in your office?
In my office, she's full time.
Okay, all right. Now, okay, we've talked about local influence. We've talked about regional influence, especially with the social media thing. We've talked about uh, getting in touch with people, and rather than berating them for even thinking, daring to ask the question, actually answering the question with a civil tone
Mhm.
and maybe even love in your heart. Okay, what about nationally? Now somebody says, wait a minute, I'm an appraiser in, South Muleshoe, Arizona, someplace. Why do I need a national influence? And from a standpoint of national influence, you probably don't. But what about a standpoint of national contacts? How do you handle that?
Well, I think the biggest, and honestly, we're all online, and so I'm going to go back to the social media thing. Like LinkedIn is a big one where we're very involved in, as you know, and as you post and get in front of people, you're not posting to your friends and family in Muleshoe, Arizona. Is that where we were at?
South Muleshoe, Arizona, or maybe Mule Mucus, Montana, or someplace like some small town.
And so as things grow and you start developing your contacts through like LinkedIn and things like that, is as like there's been some national direct lender work that we have gotten because we post enough, and they see our stuff, that when I send them an email and said, hey, can I bother you for 20 minutes of your time, they know who I am, and they know who kind of what we're about. And so now we're starting to open up those contacts of like, all right, we know who this guy is. Um, Seems like a pretty nice guy, pretty approachable guy, which is actually our slogan, is to be approachable. Um, and then, again, when I have that conversation with, you know, national direct lender Bob or whatever, it's not about, hey, send me some work. It's about, hey, what kind of problems are you seeing, and how can we help you solve that problem? And and I've met with some of those guys about work that and stuff that they're having, not even in our area, but I've had conversations with them to maybe solve the problem, or maybe a different way to think about how to get things done on time, or looking at different, just different aspects of my side of how I look at things. And then, again, if you go into these conversations, and our society is the microwave society anymore, like I want instant gratification. I want to pick up the phone and call Tim Andersen and say, hey, you're doing work in Kentucky, give me your work. It doesn't work that way. It takes time to build relationships. And once you build a relationship, and if you can get someone to like you, they'll do business with you. But if you just run through the door like a bull, then it's probably going to be a little harder road to hoe. I think so. Like, I don't know if you know this about me, but I started in the mortgage business, and then an appraiser plucked me out of the mortgage business because I didn't really like being inside all the time. I'm more of an outdoor person. And then I ended up in the appraisal business, and then I didn't make any money as a trainee, believe it or not. And so I started a landscaping lawn mowing service, and then a broker paid for me to go to real estate school because I couldn't afford to go to real estate school. And then that's how I got in real estate business, and I started selling real estate and did pretty well at it, but I didn't like the hours. And so then I found someone that would help me finish up my apprenticeship, and that's kind of like that was my circle of life with real estate, if you will. But doing all of those different aspects of real estate has made it like I understand the value of a relationship. And I think appraisers, because we don't talk to anybody, we hide in our basement or whatever, wherever you work out of. And this is not to disparage anyone who does that, but we hide behind our emails, and and it's kind of like we wait for the email to come in with the order, and we're not building those relationships to get the work. And I think that's what the industry lacks. And because of that, and because we're not building our relationships and talking to different ones and getting out in front of realtors and getting out in front of whoever, we're becoming the Kodak of the whatever 21st century.
And for those who don't know what Kodak was or was, I guess, it used to be the largest maker of film in the world. And it still makes film because there are people out there who, for whatever reason, still need film. But let's just say that Kodak was at one time a Leviathan, and now it's just somebody else making film. And
Most people don't know who they are.
yeah, most people don't know who they are, even though um, if you got started in the appraisal business more than 20 years ago, you know who Kodak was. But if you
The
got
wire
started,
photo.
yeah, yeah, if you got started 5 years ago, you don't have a clue because
Mm.
you're using digital photos. And so I think, Jared, what you're trying to say is that things change, and it's therefore up to us to stay on top of those changes, and indeed not merely stay on top of them, but get out in front of them, which ties back to what you were talking about. It's sunshiny right now, but as you're driving in whatever direction you're driving, you can see some pretty nasty clouds up ahead. You got to make some accounting for those. So, the concept of getting out and talking to people. All right, we've talked about locally, we've talked about regionally. What about nationally? How do you get out and talk to people nationally? I mean, now this podcast is going to go national, and people, all 12 of them, all over the country, are going to see it. So this is one way that you get out and you introduce yourself and you bring your services, you bring your talents, you bring your expertise to people all over the country. But let's face it, um, I'm not paying you to be here. I'm not getting I'm not getting paid to be here. But we do it because we care about the profession. We care about our fellow appraisers. But how do you go out and meet, two or three hundred people from all over the country? How do you get out of your silo and do that?
Well, and so I'm doing something I've never done for the first time this year. And I told my wife, this last year, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to the conferences. And even if it's the same people at all the conferences, I'm going to start going and doing the AX one, probably going to do the summit, probably going to do the expo. I'm gonna do one of the two in Vegas, might do both in Vegas. Because a couple of reasons. You're going to meet new people. You're going to meet some of the people who are in charge of the AMCs. Probably good to know who they are. You probably meet some folks that's with the GSEs. You might meet some folks that's with. You might run into another appraiser that you hit it off with, and hey, that might be your accountability group, if you will. And so that to me is the quickest and easiest way. I mean, I met you through Dustin, or heard of you through Dustin.
For those who don't know Dustin is Dustin Harris, the appraiser coach. And
Sorry.
he's no, that's okay. And Dustin and Jarrett and I both, or Jarrett and I both know Dustin, and fine gentleman, good friend. And yeah, we Dustin is the appraiser coach and helps folks with their appraisal businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So just to bring everybody up to speed.
And again, I mean, that's another great way to start meeting people nationally is this through something, Blaine Fine has one, Dustin has one. It's a group where you can meet other appraisers from different parts of the country. And it doesn't matter the vehicle that you use to do it, but just do something. Um, I'm most excited right now about the conferences. And honestly, the people who go to those conferences are probably the ones you want to get to know. Um, they're not mostly going, they're the ones who are investing in their business and care enough about what they're doing in the industry to make the effort and spend the money to go to those. And those are probably the people you want to know. That's just kind of my opinion about it. I could be way off on that, but that's just kind of how I look at it.
How about you mentioned you'd probably get to know folks from the AMCs. Yeah, you will. And you'll probably get to know folks from the GSEs. Yeah, you will. And let me ask you something else. How about, you pick up a magazine, a real estate appraisal magazine, and you read an article, and it just absolutely infuriates you. But yet you're going to a conference and you're walking down the hall at a break, and everybody has a lanyard around their neck with their name on it. And you go, wait a minute, that's the guy that wrote that article.
That's
I
Tim
got
Andersen.
I got to go tell him he was wrong. Okay, now, okay, so and you walk up to that man, that woman, and you say, you were wrong, and uh, the person says, well, okay, thank you. Why? Tell me. And you do so, and there is a mutually respectful uh, interchange in which nobody's opinion changes, but now you've met somebody who is quote unquote a name. Is
Mm-hmm.
that something that appraisers ought to shoot for?
100%. It never hurts to know these folks, and it never hurts for them to know you. And and so I'm like, and I think going to what you're saying is like we we have lost the ability for civil debate in this country for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And so all right, Tim, you wrote this article, and I think you're a moron. I'm not going to read you the riot act. And most people wouldn't do it anyway. But I might say, hey, Tim, that article you wrote, let's talk about that. And I always and I tell my kids this, and I'm like, you can learn something from anybody. You just got to listen to them, even if you don't like them. You can learn something from them. And I think maybe I'm like, hey, Tim, man, that article. How did you get to that point of view? And you start talking through it like an adult. And then while I may not agree with you and you may not agree with me, it's still an exchange where if I run into you again or maybe you're writing another article and you say, hey, I met that guy at that conference. He didn't agree with me on this, and we talked through it and had a great exchange. Maybe I'll hit him up and get his opinion, or maybe do a article piece or something on this one I'm doing here next month. I mean, it's amazing how your network expands just by being nice to people and listening.
Yeah, it is. It's quite amazing. Jared, as we wrap this up, let me ask you just one more question. Okay, now you said this year you're going to go to the conferences, which means other years you didn't go to the conferences. Okay, why not? And what changed your mind?
Well, that's a big question. Um, I think honestly, like when you look at like how our businesses has been and being busy like everyone else, maybe I didn't feel like I needed to. Like we were doing okay, You know, plenty of business. You know, everything was rainbows and sunshine and unicorns. And now, as I look down the horizon, like the industry is wickedly changing fast. Everything's changing. You know, with the property data collectors and everything that we got going on. And if I can go in and talk to one of the AMCs or one of the GSEs, and I can get someone's attention enough that will I make a change? Probably not. But if I can sow a seed, then eventually, if enough seeds are sown, you have a field. And so you just kind of have to stay at that. And I think if I can, one, stay relevant in my business and help my guys continue to support their livelihood, and maybe sow a seed of change somewhere, or just get someone to think about something differently, or maybe I need to learn. And I don't have the answers, and I'm not like the sharpest tool in the shed by any stretch, but like I think it's necessary to stay relevant. I think it's and I can learn some stuff and maybe help someone learn something or think about something a little bit differently. That article guy, maybe he needs to get off his high horse and think about the guys on the ground, but get out and do the work every day, or vice versa. And so I think as the industry shifts, I'm probably rambling at this point, but as the industry shifts, like these things are going to be more important, probably more so now than ever, in my opinion. And so, like, you got to go and you got to stay relevant. And and I'm not a paid spokesman for anybody. This is just Jarrett's opinion. So this and $6 will get you a water at Starbucks. But like, get out and see, and get out of your comfort zone and start talking to people. You'll be surprised, because through this this slowdown that we've had, there's guys that are actually doing pretty well. And I think the reason that we don't do well is like because we don't, one, challenge ourselves, two, we don't get out and talk to people, and three, when we were busy, we weren't looking down the road, and we were kind of jerks to folks, and now nobody wants to use us. And so, like, my whole marketing shtick, if you will, is like, seriously, like, just go talk to folks, and you got to go to where they are. And what better places than a conference, especially now when things are slow and the industry's changing like it is, to get out in front and talk to people to stay relevant. So the long way to answer your question is, I think it's important now, more so than.
All right, now
Sorry,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's more important.
I interrupted
now.
you. I'm sorry.
I just think it's more important now than it probably, in my mind, and for me personally, it's more important now than it probably has been in the last however many years.
Okay. Now you are planning on attending the Appraisers Conference and Trade Show in Colorado Springs, right?
Yes. 100%.
Okay. All right. All right. There are right now, it's my plan to be there unless I win the state lotto and move to Tahiti, which is going to be difficult because I don't play it. But it's my intention to be there. And I look forward to introducing you to a number of people whose acquaintance not only you will enjoy, but whose professional expertise you'll be able to tap into. So, Jarrett, thank you. I appreciate your time. This was a little bit of short notice, and I appreciate you jumping in here and accepting the invitation and being so gracious.
Can I add something to this that needs to be said?
Go ahead.
If you don't know Tim, and Tim, I'm going to plug you here. Some of the best money I have ever spent is when I got to know Tim, is I had him review some of my reports to help us get our reports better. And if you haven't done that, seriously, especially if you're in an office by yourself, get someone to review your reports that you can have an honest conversation about, because it will pay dividends. So,
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Don't cut that off.
No, we haven't. We're still recording. We're still recording. And I won't edit it out, mostly because I don't know how. If someone wants to get in touch with you, how do they do so?
The easiest way to find me is through LinkedIn.
Okay, LinkedIn is easy. LinkedIn.
Look me up on LinkedIn, and then just shoot us a message. Or Will I be crazy to get? I'll give you my cell phone if you don't think I'm crazy.
I give my cell phone number out all the time.
270-547-0622.
Okay, do that again because there was an internet breakup a little bit. Do that again.
270-547-0622. That's my cell. So if you need something, shoot me a call or a text.
Thank and and I will be most happy to attest that Jarrett is a gentleman who will take the time to answer your questions, and you'll be wise to chat with him. So, Jarrett, thank you. We will see you in April in Colorado Springs. Happy 2024, and my best to your family.
Yeah,
And
likewise, likewise.
we thank you. And so, everybody, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. Jarrett Hardesty of Hardesty Appraisals you're out of Owensboro, right? Owensboro, Kentucky,
Bowling
right?
Green. Bowling
Bowling Green.
Green.
Sorry about that. Bowling Green, Kentucky. So you need to go to Acts 2 to meet Jarrett. So thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Bye bye.